Thank you all very much for this opportunity. I'm going to speak at this volume. Can everybody hear okay? Okay, I think it's going to be easier for me without having to hold the mic in one hand. So if you have trouble hearing, there's plenty of seats right here that you're welcome to sit, and then you'll be able to hear just fine, I promise. So I'm very grateful to be here and to be part of this gathering. I noticed many of you, I saw the boxes from, is it Izutsuya? Kawakatsu? Okay, I saw the boxes from Kawakatsu lined up in there. So I know some of you are in your robes for the first time. You're all looking very splendid and ministerial. So I'm very excited. It sort of makes me, gets me up on my toes a little bit. The Tokudo experience comes back to me. And all of the nightmares. Just kidding, but I'm not one of these people who came back from Tokudo with my eyes aglow. Like, it was the most wonderful experience. And sort of, went into a sort of fetal position for about a week. And then but here I am, however many, 7 years later, still alive. So, and working as a minister. Many of you I've known for many years or met on different occasions, but some of you I'm meeting for the first time. So I'd like to begin by just going around, ask you to introduce yourself briefly, just your name, where you're from, and anything else you'd care to share. Begin right over here.
I'm John Hughes from the Longmont Buddhist Temple, Longmont, Colorado. I am 65 and getting ready to do Tokudo and then prison ministry is my goal. So,
Great.
I'm Smitty, Mary Beth Smith, but Smitty's better. From the Buddhist Temple of San Diego. I'm a retired naval aviator, and for the last couple of years I've been an IBS student.
My name is Noriko Kawai. I'm also from San Diego. What else? I'm studying to become a hospice chaplain right now.
Hello again. I'm Jim Pollard, Orange County Buddhist Church.
Hi, I'm Keith Cabo from the Sacramento Betsumen, and I'm a minister's assistant, and I got my Tokudo last November.
Hi everyone, I'm Paul Viel, Minister's Assistant at Spokane Buddhist Temple.
Nick San Juan from Monterey Peninsula Buddhist Temple, and I'm a Minister's Assistant there.
I'm Eric Ishii from the Kochi Buddhist Temple.
I'm Kelvin Mark from Buddhist Church of Sacramento.
I'm Matt Bank from Seattle Betswing.
I'm Rosalie May, also from Seattle Betswing.
I'm Michael Tate from Arizona Buddhist Temple.
And I'm Vaughn, I'm also from Arizona.
Oh.
Jeff Russell from Ogden, Utah Buddhist Temple.
And I'm Sui Yosaki from Gardena Buddhist Church.
Landon, introduce yourself, please.
I am Landon from the Palo Alto Buddhist Temple.
Hi. My name is Keiko Toro from Japan. This is one sabbatical year. I'm so lucky to be here. Yeah.
And as Sensei mentioned, my name is Henry Adams. I'm the minister of the San Mateo Buddhist Temple. It's just the other side of the bay. It's near San Francisco International Airport, if any of you flew into that airport on your way here today. And prior to serving in San Mateo, I served for about 3.5 years in Oxnard in Southern California, as well as was supervising the Santa Barbara Buddhist Church of Santa Barbara, and for a period of about 1 year was helping out with San Luis Obispo and Guadalupe. So I'm fortunate to have covered a large expanse of California in my relatively few years as a minister, and have had the opportunity to be involved with the Minister's Assistant Program for a few years now. I've been asked to speak on a variety of different topics over the years, and this time I got an email from Edith asking me to speak on the fundamentals of Jodo Shinshu, and I thought, wow, that's maybe the most challenging topic because there's a kind of weight of tradition here in, that there's a certain way of understanding our scriptures and our teachings, and I realize that many of you are here preparing for Tokudo and are part of this process of understanding our traditions, as we also endeavor to make these teachings relevant at our various temples and in our various communities. And so my purpose this evening will be to try to introduce what I feel are kind of the core aspects of the teaching that will give you a kind of foothold into understanding the fundamentals of Jodo Shinshu, so to speak. And for us to do that, we need to look at the larger sutra, the Sutra on the Buddha of Immeasurable Life, and the way in which Shinran Shonin read that sutra. That's basically the core understanding of Jodo Shinshu. And so I have provided a handout here, and we'll go through this together this evening. I'm not sure, I tend to get through it to the end, but we may be skipping over spots here and there in the middle. If you have questions, I'm happy to try to address those as we go along. There's a lot of content here, so we'll try to keep us moving as well through that. So I feel that in order to understand and appreciate our traditions, it's very important to be familiar with our sacred texts, our scriptures, the sutras, and the writings of Shinran. Yes?
Do you have a handout?
Yeah, I think there's one more there. Does anyone else not have a copy of the handout? Landon doesn't have one. You have one.
No, it's okay.
Oh, I will share with you.
Okay. Landon, come sit up here. Oh, Toro-sensei, you can sit here and Landon will come sit up front.
Oh.
Thanks, Landon. Yeah. So let's jump right in and begin by reading a section of the larger sutra here. So the sutras, as many of you are, I believe, familiar with what a sutra is. The sutras are the sermons of Shakyamuni Buddha, the Buddha who is the founder of the Buddhist tradition, this religion, philosophy, whatever you call it, that we call Buddhism, is based on the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, and we receive those teachings in the sutras, his sermons that he taught. And so the larger sutra is of the Buddha's many sermons, the one that was identified by Shinran and his teacher Honen as the most relevant, the most essential sutra for understanding this Nembutsu teaching. And so we'll begin by looking at this sutra, and there's one passage in particular from the sutra that I'd like us to start with. So I'd like to ask people to read, so I'll ask Toro-sensei, since you're right up front, if you could read that first paragraph there. It says, Shakyamuni Buddha said to his disciple Ananda.
Okay. Shakyamuni Buddha said to his disciple Ananda, there was a king who, having heard the Buddha's exposition of the Dharma, rejoiced in his heart and awakened the aspiration for spring through enlightenment. He renounced his kingdom and throne and undertook practice as a monk named Dhammakala, possessed of superior intelligence, courage, and wisdom. He surpassed other people of the world. He went to see Lokeshvara Raja Tathagata, bowed at his feet, said, circumambulated his 3 times to the right, kneeled down on the ground, and putting his palms together in reverence, praised the Buddha with the following verses.
Okay, and then what follows this is the Sambutsuge. The Sambutsuge is one of our most commonly chanted sections of of sutra, scriptural translations. Many of you, I'm sure at your temples, chant Sambutsuge, maybe at a Shotsuki Hoyo as part of your regular rotation of Dharma services. So this is kind of the setup for the Sambutsuge. And we won't be talking specifically about the Sambutsuge, but I want to talk about this moment, what's happening right here in the larger sutra, and to break down the characters, who is speaking. Because this is sometimes a little bit confusing for us. When we read the sutras, there are many voices coming out, kind of he said, he said, he said sort of situation. So I want to break this down a little bit for us today with embarrassingly bad drawings. And so here we have a Buddha, okay? This Buddha's name is Shakyamuni Buddha. Right? Now Shakyamuni Buddha has a disciple. His disciple's name is Ananda. So in this larger sutra, we hear about how Ananda comes to hear the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. And Ananda is also a monk. Okay? So this is Shakyamuni Buddha's disciple. His name is Ananda. Now, Ananda was a very special disciple of Shakyamuni Buddha. He was always with him in the Buddha's later life. He was the Buddha's constant companion. And Ananda had a kind of interesting agreement with the Buddha. They had a deal. So the Buddha would, of course, Ananda was always with the Buddha to hear his teachings. If the Buddha should go someplace and give a teaching when Ananda wasn't there, then the Buddha, when he came back, would tell Ananda what he had talked about. He'd say, I went to this place, went to this village, someone asked me a question, this is what I told them. And so all of the sutras, all of the teachings that we have are relayed to us by Ananda. Ananda was like the human tape recorder who was always with the Buddha listening to his sermons. So in the sutra, the main voice, the narrator voice, in a sense, is Ananda. He's the main narrator. And the larger sutra occurs as a conversation between Ananda and the Buddha. Ananda is looking at the Buddha. He sees the Buddha. Shakyamuni Buddha looks particularly splendid on this day. And he says, you know, you look great. It's like your face is glowing, you're beaming. Could it be that you're thinking on all Buddhas thinking about each other? Could that be what you're thinking about? And the Buddha's like, whoa. Did somebody put you up to that? Did some special superpower divine being whisper in your ear and ask you to ask me that question? And Ananda says, no, it just occurred to me. The Buddha said, wow, that's a great question, and let me tell you a story, let me tell you something. And so the Buddha begins to relay this story, this narrative he's going to tell, that then becomes the larger sutra. So he begins to tell this story, and he says in this passage that Todo Sensei just read for us, says there was a king. There was a king. Okay? We have a king. King. Since he's a king, he wears a crown, right? there was a king. Okay, so there's a king, and this king, he renounced his kingdom and his throne, right? He wants to help people. That's what this king is all about. This king is somebody who wants to help people. He wants to, as a king, wants to do right by his subjects. He wants to ease their suffering, ease their pain. He's got lots of money. He's got lots of power, right? He's a king. He's Barack Obama and Mark Zuckerberg rolled into one, right? He's got all of the power and the influence all in his entire kingdom. And yet, all that power and all that wealth does not enable him to make the lives of his people truly better. And so, what does he do? He gives it all up. He says, there must be another way. I've got to find a teacher, someone who can show me the way to make people's lives better. And so he undertakes practice. He becomes a monk named Dharmakara. And then he seeks out and he finds a Buddha. So, Shakyamuni Buddha is telling a story about a king who then meets another Buddha. Okay, so there's another Buddha here. There's another Buddha. This is supposed to be a Buddha. And this Buddha's name is Lokesh Vara Raja Buddha. Buddha. In Japanese, this Dhammakara is Hozo. Hozo. Lokesh Vara Raja is Seiji Zai-o. Seiji Zai-o. Did anybody chant Shoshinge this afternoon? Yeah. How does it begin again? Kimyo Muryo Junyo Rai Namo Fukashi Ko. What comes next? Hozo Bosatsu In Niji Zai Seiji Zai O Busho. Okay, so this is talking about this scene right here, saying that when this Hozo, this Dharmakara Bodhisattva, when he was in the stage of getting things going, he's starting his path, he's starting it up. At that point, he is in the presence of Lokeshvara Raja Buddha. This is the very first, after in Shinran Shonin he composes the Shoshinge, the very first thing he does is take refuge in Amida Buddha. The very next thing he does is refer to this very moment, right here. That's what it's about. That's the first section of the Shoshinge, is talking about this very moment when Dharmakara Bodhisattva is sitting here, standing, kneeling in the presence of Lokeshvara Raja Buddha. So this is told to us by Shakyamuni Buddha. Shakyamuni Buddha was a historical Buddha. He was a person who went back 2,500 years ago to India with our time machine. We could track him down and we could, meet him, and he was a flesh and blood person, from as best we can tell from the historical record. He was a real, concrete historical presence in our world, as was Ananda, as best we can tell. And while he was here with us in our world, he provided many teachings. And one of those teachings that he provided was to talk about Dharmakara Bodhisattva and this Lokeshvaraja Buddha. And that's what the larger sutra is about. So this is, at this encounter, he meets him, he circumambulates, he bows down his feet, circumambulates, kneels on the ground, puts his palms together in reverence, and then he praises the Buddha with these verses of the Sambutsuge. So the Sambutsuge, who is the speaker of the Sambutsuge? Who is talking?
Dharmakara Bodhisattva.
Dharmakara Bodhisattva is speaking. And who is he praising? Lokeshvaraja Buddha, right? So the Sambutsuge, verses in praise of the Buddha. So that is Dharmakara Bodhisattva praising Lokeshvaraja Buddha. So it's not praising Amida Buddha, it's not praising Shakyamuni Buddha, it's this character, Dharmakara Bodhisattva, praising Lokeshvaraja Buddha. Now it's true that all Buddhas share common characteristics, so when you praise one Buddha, you are praising indeed all Buddhas. So in praising the wonderful characteristics of Lokeshvaraja Buddha, in the Sambutsuge, you're praising all Buddhas, including Shakyamuni, including Amida. So in that sense, it is praising Amida and Shakyamuni, but in a kind of literal narrative sense, it's Lokeshvaraja Buddha who's the one being praised in the Sambutsuge. So let's carry on here. Are we okay up to this point? Yes? Okay, very good. Let's carry on here. Let's see. Let's skip around a little bit. Cindy, could I ask you to read the next paragraph, please?
Shakyamuni Buddha said to Ananda, Bhiksu Dharmakara, having spoken these verses, said to the Buddha Lokeshvaraja, in just this way, world-honored one, I have awakened the aspiration for supreme perfect enlightenment. May I ask you, the Buddha, to expound fully the Dharma for my sake. I will perform the practice in order to establish a Buddha land adorned with countless pure and excellent qualities chosen from among Buddha lands. I wish to attain perfect enlightenment in this quickly so that I can remove the roots of suffering and affliction and birth and death.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So Dharmakara Bodhisattva, so he recites the Sambutsuge, and he says part of the Sambutsuge is Bhikshu Dharmakara expressing his aspiration to become a Buddha just like Lokeshvaraja. So he says, I want to be just like you. I want to be just like you. I want to do what you do. I want to have all of these wonderful virtues. This is what's so great about you. You're wonderful, and I want to be just like you. I can tell you what's great about you, and I want to do just that. I want to be just like you. And I would like to ask you to fully expound the Dharma for my sake. So in order that I can be just like you, I need you to teach me. Please teach me. Please tell me how I can be just like you. And he makes a promise. He says, I will perform the practice in order to establish a Buddha land. Okay, so this is a very mainstream Mahayana Buddhist idea. This idea that one, through the virtue of their hard work and dedication, can create this Buddha land, this perfect world for Buddhist practice. So he wants to create a Buddha land adorned with countless pure and excellent qualities chosen from among Buddha lands. So there are these infinite number of Buddha lands already existing at this point. And he says, I want to check them all out and choose the best qualities. So it's like, say you were going to design a healthcare system, and you were going to say, well, let's visit all the countries in the world and choose the best qualities of their healthcare system. You know, so you go up to Canada and you say, you know, does anybody here ever go broke from having to pay medical bills? And they say, no, we have a single-payer healthcare system. You know, you just, when you're sick, you go to the doctor and it's taken care of. You say, wow, that's really great. I want to adopt that for my healthcare system. And then you go to Japan and you say, oh, I want to go see this doctor, but if I'm in the United States, I have to only go to a doctor that's in my group. My family at the moment is switching all of our doctors because there's a disagreement between Stanford Medical and Blue Shield, and we've given up. We're going to Kaiser. We're just going to throw in the towel. But, so you could go to Japan and say, what about this? And say, oh no, you can go to any doctor you want. You just go. You just pick a doctor. You don't even need a referral. You just show up at the doctor's office. Your leg hurts, you go to a leg doctor. You got a headache, you go to a head doctor. You go to the doctor, you like, wow, that's a great system. I want my medical system to work like that. So you could go and visit all these different countries, and you could come to the United States, and you could say, we have very fine researchers. If you're sick, you could go to the Stanford Medical Center, and you could get the latest, most cutting edge, richly funded, cutting technology thing, and it will cure all your problems. And say, wow, I want that in my country too. So we're going to create this perfect healthcare system. So this is an example, but this is how Dharmakara Bodhisattva wants to create this perfect world for Buddhist practice. So he's going to visit all of the countries. He's going to go to Canada, going to go to Japan, going to come here to the United States. He's going to go to all the Buddha lands and choose among the best things. And he's going to do something else. He's going to go up to Canada and he's going to say, well, what if I need an operation right away? Say, well, you might have to wait a couple months because sometimes you have to wait. We've only got, the way our system works is that, we have to prioritize people based on their need. And so he says, ooh, I don't like that. What about, then come down to America and they say, well, if you need the operation, we can make it happen right away, depending on your medical insurance or your system, but it's possible. That's a possibility here. It says, oh, I want that to happen. So I don't want people to have to wait. But in the United States, it's so expensive you can go broke from having to pay for medical care. So I don't want anybody to go broke. So he's choosing two things. He's choosing the good things, and he's choosing out the good things. He's also choosing out the bad things. He's selecting things. I want to take this up, and selecting things to be discarded. I want to get rid of that. Okay, so there are these two processes going on. So he goes and he's he wants to view all of these lands, and he wants to create a perfect land based on his understanding of what is favorable and what is unfavorable. Let's read on. Let's read the next, say, 3 paragraphs or so. Let's see, Jeff, could I ask you to read the next one, please?
Put on my reading glasses. The Buddha said to Ananda, at that time the Buddha Lokeshwaraja told Bhikkhu Dhammakara, you yourself should know what needs to be done in order to adorn your Buddha land. The Bhikkhu replied to the Buddha, the meaning of what you have just said is so vast and profound that it is beyond my range of comprehension. Therefore, world-honored one, I beseech you to explain in detail practices by which all Buddha Tathagatas establish their pure lands. After I have heard it, I will practice as taught and fulfill all my aspirations.
Thank you. So then Lokeshwara Raja responds to him. He says, well, you should already know all of these things. You shouldn't need me to tell you. You're a sincere student. You should be able to figure it out on your own. To which Dharmakara replies, he says, you just went right over my head. It's so profound. Your teachings are too profound. I need you to explain to me in detail. I need you to really break it down for me, because it's just too much for me. And after you've explained it to me, I know that I'll be able to get it, and then I'm going to be able to do it. Okay? Let's see. Noriko-san, could I ask you to read the next paragraph?
At that time, the Buddha Lokeshwara Raja realized that the noble aspirations of Bhikkhu Dhammakara were profound and vast, and so conveyed to him the following teaching. It is as if a person were to bail out the great ocean using a pail and eventually to reach the bottom after many kalpas. Such a person would then obtain the precious treasures to be found there. Likewise, if one seeks the way sincerely and diligently, one should be able to reach one's goal. What vow could not be fulfilled?
Thank you. So he's saying, you know, well, you're going to need to work very hard. It's like bailing out the ocean. But if you were to bail out the ocean, you'd find all that sunken treasure, right? Didn't they just discover a big shipwreck or something like that recently? So you'd find this big hoard of gold and treasure, and it would be all yours. And he says if you were to practice, it takes a long time, and it'd be very difficult, but if you were able to fulfill that practice, you will be able to accomplish your goal. So it's going to be very difficult for you to create this kind of Buddha land that you're describing out of the power of your virtue and your practice, but if you are able to do so, then certainly this will come to fulfillment. You will reach your goal. And what vow could not be fulfilled? And this is a really important point here. It's that whatever promises you make, you'll be able to follow through on those if you practice with the necessary diligence and dedication. Okay. Let's see. Let's carry on. So, Smitty, could you read the next paragraph, please?
Then Buddha Lokasvara taught fully the good and bad qualities of the heavenly and human beings in 210 kotas of Buddha lands, as well as the coarse and exquisite aspects of those lands, and revealed them all in accordance with Dharmakara's request.
Right, and so this is where Lokeshvara Raja then he teaches fully. He takes, in a sense, takes Dharmakara to all of these different lands and shows him the good and bad qualities of the beings there and the coarse and exquisite aspects of those lands. So, you know, this is in this specific land there are these wonderful things, but there are also these drawbacks. The people are this way, and this is wonderful, but they're also kind of like this. It's annoying. It's like you go to my home state of Minnesota, where you go to this wonderful Pure Land that is in Minnesota, and you show up in September, and you say, "Wow, this is great! It's neither too warm nor too cold. It's beautiful. It's warm. It's very pleasant." But if you hang around for a couple more months, it's going to get very cold and very snowy there, and then you will realize the coarse aspect of life in Minnesota. Likewise with the beings, the people of Minnesota, my people, very polite and very friendly, very courteous, very nice. But if you hang around for a while, you're like, I don't know, do they like me or do they hate me? You can never tell, because they're always so nice and friendly and smiley, but I can never tell if they really like me or if they think I'm a big jerk. And so there are these two aspects to people in this Pure Land of Minnesota, and so Lokeshvara Raja shows Dharmakara in all of these lands. The place itself has certain aspects. Some are wonderful, some less so. The people, the beings of that land, also some things about them are great, other things not so much. And this is all in accordance with Dharmakara's request. And then let's read the next paragraph. Let's see. John, could I ask you to read the next paragraph then?
Then the bhikkhu, having heard the Buddha's exposition, and having seen all the glorious and pure adornments of those lands, made the supreme and incomparable vows. His mind was calm and tranquil, free of all attachments and unequaled in all the world. After contemplating the vows for 5 kalpas, he adopted the pure practices for the establishment of the glorious Buddha land.
Okay, so he's gone and he's viewed all of these lands. He's determined what is coarse, what is exquisite, what is good, what is bad, and then based on what he's learned from Dharmakara Bodhisattva, then he establishes his vows. He establishes his vows to create this land. He makes the plan. He says, this is what it's going to be like. Okay? And then he speaks. He speaks to Lokeshvara Raja. And this is a very important aspect of what we call bodhisattva practice, to make a vow, a promise in the presence of a Buddha. be in the presence of a Buddha and to make a promise. And so he proceeds to make 48 vows. 48 vows. And then he made these incomparable vows. His mind was calm and free of all attachments and unequal in the world. So this is really key. He doesn't make these vows based on his personal likes and dislikes. He's like, well, I mean, that's why if you think about like a Pure Land that my kid would imagine, it's like there would be Nutella on everything, and you could lick it all day long, and you could watch Octonauts for 24 hours a day, and you would get all the toy helicopters you want. And that would be based on his own personal feelings and attachments and desires. But these vows are made based on a mind that is calm and tranquil, free of all attachments and unequaled in the world. So this is a pure state of mind, an aspiration from which these 48 vows arise. Okay? And so for the bulk of what kind of remains of my time, I want to look at some selections. I didn't copy out all 48 vows. I chose somewhat selectively some representative aspects of the vows that give us a sense of what is this Pure Land? What is this pure, wonderful place for practicing the Dharma, for a place for realizing enlightenment that Dharmakara aspired to create through his vows. And so there are some things that are rejected, like snowy winters, and people who are just too polite, you can't even figure out if they like you or they hate you, a medical system that causes you to go broke, having to wait 6 months for back surgery. There are some things that are rejected, and there are some things that are affirmed and embraced. And we have a list of these. Many of these are not specifically emphasized by Shinran Shonin in his writing. Shinran Shonin, if he were to write a commentary on all of the vows, it would have, taken up so much of his time, it would have distracted him from the most important matter for him, which was the matter of the Nembutsu and the realization of awakening. So Shinran and Honen, among these 48 vows that were selected by Dharmakara, they focus in on a set of vows. And those are, I put those in bold, the ones that Shinran really specifically focuses in on, and I'll talk about those a little bit later this evening, but at this point I want us to get a sense of the sort of broader landscape of these vows in order to appreciate the significance of the ones that Shinran and Honen specifically focus in on. And so I've provided on the left-hand side a kind of little summary or interpretation of what is affirmed or rejected in those vows. For the ones that are in bold, those are specifically Shinran Shonin's interpretation. So for those of you who are studying for your Tokudo, you really need to focus in on that. The ones that are not in bold are my interpretation. So for those of you who are going to Tokudo, you never saw that. You never heard it. It doesn't exist. But so this is part Tokudo preparation and part me sharing my appreciation of these teachings with you. Because the reality of the matter is that as people, ministers, assistants, you're involved with sharing the Dharma, making these teachings relevant to the sanghas that you serve. And so some of these interpretations that I provide, and I don't think any of it's way out there, but it's my way of making this relevant to the sanghas that I've had the opportunity to serve. So let's jump in and look at, first I'd like to look at what is rejected among these vows. So let's begin with the first two vows. Let's see here. I'll ask Jim to read. Could you read 1 and 2, please?
What is rejected? 3 poisons of greed, anger, and ignorance. Vow 1. If, when I attain Buddhahood, there should be hell, the realm of hungry spirits, or the realm of animals in my land, may I not attain the perfect enlightenment. Vow 2. If, when I attain Buddhahood, the humans and devas in my land should, after their death, return once more to the 3 evil realms, may I not attain the perfect enlightenment.
Thank you. So, in Buddhism, there are these 6 realms of existence. Is this a somewhat familiar teaching for people? I'm glad to see heads nodding. So the idea that there are these 6 states of existence. Hell beings, hungry spirits, animals, asuras or fighting titans, devas, heavenly beings, and humans, and that we cycle through these 6 realms, and that the 6 realms of existence are the result of one's karma, one's way of living. And so birth in the hell realm is generally associated with anger, hatred, violent behavior. Okay? Birth in the realm of hungry spirits is generally associated with greed, hoarding. And birth in the realm of animals, generally associated with foolishness and ignorance. And so by rejecting birth in these 3 realms, the so-called 3 poisons of greed, anger, and ignorance are also being rejected. And the results of those are being rejected. So this pure realm that Dharmakara Bodhisattva aspires to realize is a realm free of greed, anger, and ignorance. So this is, you look at this and this is, Buddhism 101, right? What's the problem? Greed, anger, and ignorance. What's the goal? Get rid of it. And so this Pure Land teaching is a clear expression of these basic Buddhist ideals. The very first vows that are established in these 48 are the path to getting out of liberation from suffering. And this is right there in the Four Noble Truths, right? And then as we go into more depth, then we get further into the way of realizing that. And that's provided here as well. Okay. Let's move on and now look at 3 and 4. These are 2 of my personal favorites. So I know I skipped Landon earlier. Now that I'm asking everyone to read, I'm going to ask Landon to read number 3.
Racial discrimination. If, when I attain Buddhahood, the humans and devas in my land should not all be the color of genuine gold, may I not attain the perfect enlightenment.
Okay, thank you. So everybody in the Pure Land of Amida Buddha is going to be the color of genuine gold, right? Now the way that I interpret this is not to say that the ideal is that everyone should look exactly the same or have exactly the same complexion, but rather that whatever a person's complexion is, that they are valued as precious as genuine gold. That's the way that I read this. So it's a way of responding to racial discrimination, which existed, has existed throughout human history, and still exists to a large extent in India. That's why you see people walking in East Asia. I know that there have been many a time when we've been on a bright sunny day and my wife pulled out an umbrella on a sunny day because she doesn't want to get a tan, right? She doesn't want to lose this fairer complexion. And there's this preference for fair skin in societies. And this is a response to that, to see that there's this tendency among sentient beings to have a preference for certain kinds of complexion and to treat people differently based on their complexion. I mean, this is a huge problem that we face right now. I mean, turn on the news. When's the last time you heard a news story that didn't include some issue of a person suffering as a result of their skin color? I mean, it continues to be a serious problem, and this is something, an aspect of human foolishness that's responded to here in the larger sutra. Let's read number 4 too. Let's see, Vaughn, could I ask you to read number 4, please?
Absolutely. This is on discrimination based on appearances. If, when I attain Buddhahood, the humans and devas in my land should not all be of the same appearance, and should be either beautiful or ugly, may I not attain the perfect enlightenment.
Thank you. So these two I think of as kind of a pair. You know, this is about judging and valuing people based on their appearances. Again, the way I read this is not to say that everyone should look exactly the same. Everybody should have one kind of body type, one kind of hairstyle, one kind of clothes purchased from a certain store, but rather whatever a person looks like, that they are appreciated just as they are, no more beautiful or less attractive than anyone else, just as they are. And so this is, I read this as a response from the wisdom of the Buddha, looking at this world that we live in and saying, this is something foolish that people do, and in a perfect, ideal world, a world that is free from suffering, people wouldn't do that. No one would be treated as more beautiful or more ugly than anyone else. So if we sort of take a moment to step back and sort of wrap our heads around this complex way in which this narrative works. So we have these 48 vows that are being told to us in the voice of Dharmakara Bodhisattva.